what happens with payback is that although you get stuff back for having your stuff destroyed, it takes quite a while to come back, and more importantly, you get your points over time. It's like slowed and it's moderated, so you really don't start buying heavy tanks until like late in the game, or at least halfway through or something. Whereas the other option, you just no payback, you get all your points in the beginning, and pretty soon you can blow it all on a bunch of crazy tanks. And if you add that to a high point level, it means that everyone can buy tanks like these Tigers and these IS-2s and drive around. Looks like a Panther just got taken out. So everyone starts buying these heavy tanks, and it might not be the best strategy because you see this heavy tank knocked out. Once your heavy tank gets knocked out, you're pretty much boned, especially if you can't repair it. And that can happen to things like bazooka men or men with AT grenades, things that are very, very cheap to buy compared to the heavy tank, but you lose your heavy tank to it. So that is a big problem in games like this where the impetus is to buy heavy tanks, but you're kind of forced to often because the opponent buys a lot of heavy tanks. So the main thing you do is you're like, I gotta get this IS-2 to fight off these Tigers, but you don't really have to. I usually end up resorting to heavy tanks, but the much better players that I see almost always end up just buying like bazooka men and hiding them in bushes, or flamethrower troops and sneaking up behind and setting the tanks on fire. That is using tactics instead of just buying the heaviest tank you can do and hoping to duke it out. Although, not that there's anything wrong with heavy tanks, I'm just saying that I don't like it when the games escalate that far, that fast, and then I especially don't like it when you see a lot of tanks. Although this thing looks pretty, doesn't look too bad. We got 2 or 3 heavy tanks per side, and that's not awful. I'm trying to figure that's a Panther, so he's gonna shoot the sloping front armor of the Panther. The Panther, an odd German design. Generally, they did not extend the barrels of their guns over the chassis of their tanks, but they saw what the Russians were doing, and they're like, we gotta change our tanks. So out comes the Panther with this sloping frontal armor and its crazy gigantic gun, and pretty much blew the crap out of everybody. You see that Panzer IV is a more average looking German tank. Hard to manufacture, not like the Soviet stuff, which was easy to make. He chucked an AT grenade at it. I'm not sure if that hit or not, but in any case, it probably just stunned the crew of that Panzer IV, which is the only reason this guy's alive. What to do now? That guy has nothing that can damage the tank. What I would probably think about doing is going over that T-34 that's knocked out to the left of that tank, steal its dynamite, then plant the dynamite behind the Panzer IV. Although the chances of that working are approximately 0%, it's totally worth it just to try. It's very fun, and it looks like the Germans are screwed at this point. They just lost the Panzer IV and just lost another Panzer IV, so things are looking quite bad for them, and they only have 2 points left, so it's looking nice for the Soviets. It's a nice day in Soviet land. You see this crazy gun on top of the IS-2. Make sure you always, whenever you buy a heavy tank like this, the IS-2 or the IS-3, or even smaller tanks have guns like that. Ooh, there's some of that German artillery. Whenever you buy a tank like that, whenever you notice there's a coaxial machine gun on the top, I think it's a coaxial, maybe it's a pintle mounted, I don't know what they're called. Whenever you see a machine gun on top, make sure that's crewed. If there's no one crewing it, buy some tank crewmen or something and stick them up top, or even use a rifleman or something. But make sure there's always a dude on that machine gun. He's kind of vulnerable. He can get shot by just normal people. Ooh, there goes a Panzerwerfer. These guys bought too much artillery. That's not a good idea. Don't buy artillery, guys. I mean, some artillery is good, and obviously a mortar is probably the best unit in the game, in my opinion. But if you load up on the heavy stuff, you're just not going to have anything to take the points. You're not going to have anything to fight their tanks. You're not going to have anything. So yeah, make sure there's a guy crewing the thing on top, because although he can get shot just by small arms fire, or if you drive through a building and the building collapses, he'll die, or artillery lands on him, he'll die, or if a flamethrower flames a tank and you manage to kill the flamethrower before the tank gets set on fire, that guy will still die. Or if a grenade explodes near him, even if it's not an anti-tank grenade, he'll die. If it is an anti-tank grenade, he'll definitely die. Yeah, he's pretty much screwed no matter what you do. But stick him there anyways, because no one cares about him, and because that provides your tank with far, far more protection against infantry. He's able to shoot down infantry that are approaching the tank much better than anything, including the hull-mounted machine gun, which can only shoot in front or on certain Soviet tanks behind, because it's mounted on the back of the turret, and I honestly never figured out what they were going for with that. But yeah, stick someone on top of that. On it, often you can think that it's crewed, but then it isn't once you tell your tank to do something, because the tank it's got positions for a driver and a gunner and a loader, and a tank commander, and then the guy on top. And often they'll crew the thing on top before they crew the tank commander position. But you see he just told his tank crewman to get in that rightmost tank. You need 5 people usually to for the heavy tanks to crew that. Every tank varies, and you can hover over the tank and see the first. You go into the buy menu and you look at the specifications for the tank, or you just click on it, and then in the bottom left in the crew you'll see one number, which is, like, for example with the IS-2 it's 5, and then another number which is 9 or whatever number, and the first number is how many people the tank needs to be fully crewed. Like I said, usually 5 or 4. Some of the small tanks are 3. I've even seen 2 before. And the second number is just how many people the tank can hold, period. That often consists of people riding on the side. This IS-2 is 9. That's because 4 people can ride on the side after 5 have crewed it. You'll notice I mentioned what did I mention? What I call him? The commander, the tank commander? I don't know what he is. But he's the 5th person if you count the dude on top of the tank. He's the 5th person. He has a little icon that looks like 2 white arrows pointing downwards. Maybe if you look on the bottom right of the screen you can see that. I can't remember what his job was. He does something that makes the tank better. Maybe it moves faster is what it is. Or the turret turns faster. I can't remember what his job is, but there goes that panther. Too bad. But it's probably a good idea to have one of those guys in the tank, because tank crewmen only cost 1 point and you get 2 of them. So just load your tank up with as much as you want. It's like it's pretty much free. You can treat your tank crewmen worse than you treat anyone else. I'm sure they're not too happy to hear this, but they shouldn't have signed up to be tank crewmen if they didn't want to be treated too bad. No, oh wow! Look, someone hid a flamethrower in a bush, and this is why super tanks are sometimes not a great idea. His entire crew just got cooked. It's now a delicious, delicious tank, but unfortunately before he can order any of his men to retrieve a meal from the tank, the engine gets set on fire and explodes, killing an entire SMG infantry squad that was licking its lips just waiting to devour their brothers. So that, my friends, is what happens to heavy tanks if you are not extremely careful. He has complete control of this area. He's got infantry all over, and all it took was one flamethrower dude hiding in there, and that could have been a rocket launcher, that could have been a dude with an AT grenade. Anybody can take out your incredibly expensive, incredibly heavy tank just by being lucky like that, or skilled like that. So that is why no matter how many crazy Tigers or Panthers or IS-3s or T-26s, the American tank that was sometime in the 1950s but for some reason is in Men of War, no matter how many of those you have, you'll never make it anywhere without infantry support, or more accurately, you'll make it somewhere, then you'll get set on fire and die. It's a morality tale. And looks like someone's bought an officer, because that little bright circle around those very unfortunate infantry, you saw how it disappeared then reappeared in a moment. That is an officer's little binoculars jumping around, and if you set him automatically, just let him do his thing, he'll pretty much just like look around the map with his binoculars all the time. He'll be spastic and stuff, but it's incredibly helpful because it just gives you sight on things, and that in this case it enabled his IS-2 to shoot fire across the map with his HE round and blow the crap out of his people. So yeah, now it's just mopping up for the Soviets. I think one of the Germans left a while ago, maybe even 2 Germans left, but I think just one. And the mistake the Germans made here, I don't know. I don't think I'm in a position to evaluate the way I often am when shoutcasting something like Company Heroes or something, because Men of War, there's just so many options. You have a huge amount of options, and it's hard to tell without seeing from the German perspective what they did wrong. As for the Allies, we saw that one time the guy used the Katyusha and took out a lot of enemy advancing on the point, but that's a good use of artillery. I think a better use of artillery is probably pounding the enemy artillery. Really, I think the best thing you can do with artillery is take out their artillery, because that's anything else you can do the job with something else, like a tank or whatever, or a mortar especially can defend your point very well against advancing infantry, and AT guns can hold off the light vehicles. Oh, look, it's a King Tiger. But artillery is often the only thing that can make it and fight off the enemy artillery. So, the end. Hope you enjoyed this.